My former boyfriend invited me to his wedding to flaunt his affluent fiancée, but my plus one flipped the script in a way I never saw coming. Ethan, 30, male, and I, 22, female, crossed paths while working part-time at a local coffee shop. I was still in university, saving up to move out of my parents' home for good, while Ethan was grappling with student loan repayments. His parents were drowning in debt from their gambling habits, leaving him without any financial support. At first, we connected over shared family struggles, but soon we realized we truly enjoyed each other's company. 2 years later, after graduating, I had enough savings to live independently. Ethan, however, was still struggling with his loans and couldn't afford to leave his parents' place. So I suggested he move in with me. Unfortunately, due to his financial strain, he couldn't contribute much to the rent. I offered to cover 80% of it, leaving him to pay just 20%, which he eagerly accepted. Aside from rent, we split utility bills evenly. While we had different jobs, Ethan's required long on-site hours, while my corporate role offered flexibility to work from home as long as I met my targets. His demanding schedule meant he rarely helped with household chores. I took on cooking, cleaning, laundry, and dishes without complaint, understanding the toll his job took. I did, however, ask him to handle one task, taking out the trash since he was usually the last to eat. But Ethan consistently forgot, leaving me to deal with it each morning. One weekend, after a long workday, I came home to chaos. The kitchen was a disaster, dirty dishes piled up, empty snack wrappers scattered, and the trash overflowing. Laundry was stacked high, and the place was a mess. Exhausted and hoping to relax, I couldn't ignore the state of the house. I spent the entire day tidying up, expecting Ethan to notice. When he got home, he greeted me warmly with a hug, saying he missed me, but didn't acknowledge the cleaned-up space. Instead, he plopped down to watch his favorite sports game, leaving me feeling invisible and frustrated. Tears welled up, a mix of exhaustion and feeling unvalued. When Ethan asked if I was okay, I brushed it off, saying I was just tired and heading to bed. I reminded him to take out the trash, and he nodded absently. Predictably, the next morning, the trash was still there. My patience snapped when he strolled into the kitchen and casually asked me to make breakfast. I told him to cook for himself if he was hungry. He called me rude, and I lost it, shouting about how useless he was around the house. He stared blankly as if he'd done nothing wrong and told me not to be so dramatic. Taking a deep breath, I asked why he never took out the trash. He shrugged, saying he forgot. When I pressed him on what he actually contributed besides coming home to watch TV with a beer, he claimed his tiring job entitled him to downtime. I agreed he deserved rest but pointed out that I, too, worked hard, then came home to cook, clean, do laundry, and even iron his clothes, all while only asking him to handle the trash. Ethan's response floored me. He said he never asked me to do those things and that, as his girlfriend, I should support him, just like his mom did for his dad. His words ignited my anger. I realized I'd been letting him take advantage of me, despite us not even being married. I looked him in the eye and declared I was done doing his chores. I wasn't his mother, and we were equals. He'd need to cook, clean, do his own laundry, iron his shirts, and take out the trash. I also demanded he start paying 50% of the rent or move out. Ethan was stunned, asking where this was coming from. I explained I was fed up with working so hard for him without appreciation. He tried to argue, but I left for work, late and resolute. For the first time, I'd set firm boundaries and I felt no guilt. I stuck to my word, only cleaning up after myself. Watching Ethan scramble to find clean clothes or iron his shirts was oddly satisfying. He left dishes and trash untouched, hoping I'd cave, but I held firm, even eating takeout to avoid the kitchen's stench. He tried guilt-tripping me, insisting I should be a supportive partner, but I stood my ground. When rent was due, I paid 50% and told the landlord Ethan would cover the rest. He came home furious, demanding I pay 80% like before, but I reminded him how he never valued my efforts. He made excuses but ultimately paid his share. Through it all, he never apologized or acknowledged my perspective. It stung that he never admitted I was right. Looking back, I wish I'd seen his true colors sooner. Our fights escalated over the months, with him blaming me and trying to manipulate me into reverting to my old ways. Then I got a promotion at work, which seemed to be the breaking point for Ethan. A mutual friend, also my coworker, must have mentioned it to him. That night he came home drunk, waking me up to talk. Groggy and annoyed, I asked if it could wait, but he insisted it was urgent. Sitting up, I asked what was so important. Slurring, Ethan confessed he'd met someone at work. Sophia, a 20-year-old daughter of a wealthy businessman. I'd met her at one of his office events. She only worked because her father insisted on her gaining experience. Ethan rambled about falling for her, calling her a real woman compared to me. I felt nothing, no jealousy, no pain. Our relationship was already dead. We were practically roommates. I cut him off, saying I didn't care about his new romance and suggested we break up amicably, asking him to move out soon. Ethan, expecting jealousy, asked if I was envious. I smiled, saying I was relieved he'd found someone, as it eased my guilt about ending things. Instead of relief, he got angry, accusing me of being too confident because of my promotion. I clarified that my career had nothing to do with it. We'd simply grown apart. I understood why he sought someone else, as we'd lost our spark. But he lashed out, saying he despised modern women like me who prioritized careers. He praised Sophia for wanting marriage and kids, unlike me. Calmly, I told him every woman has different goals. Sophia's wealth might mean she didn't need a career, but I valued mine. If he wanted someone like her, he should be with her. I reiterated he needed to move out. He demanded to know how I'd afford rent alone. I revealed my raise allowed me to cover it fully. Enraged, he bragged about Sophia's wealth and her father-bought house, saying men prefer housewives over career-driven women like me. Tired of his tirade, I told him to sleep on the couch and move out by month's end. He grumbled, but I went back to sleep. Over the next week, he packed and moved out. I was thrilled at the thought of having the place to myself. On his final night, I came home to find Ethan and Sophia on the couch. He explained he wanted to show her where he'd lived. I was stunned he'd brought her without asking, knowing I'd be home. Not wanting to be rude to Sophia, I greeted her politely, but she gave me a cold, disdainful look and ignored me. I brushed it off and went to freshen up. While cooking dinner, Sophia came to the kitchen, staring at me silently. Did someone like her, he should be with her. I reiterated he needed to move out. He demanded to know how I'd afford rent alone. I revealed my raise allowed me to cover it fully. Enraged, he bragged about Sophia's wealth and her father-bought house, saying men prefer housewives over career-driven women like me. Tired of his tirade, I told him to sleep on the couch and move out by month's end. He grumbled, but I went back to sleep. Over the next week, he packed and moved out. I was thrilled at the thought of having the place to myself. On his final night, I came home to find Ethan and Sophia on the couch. He explained he wanted to show her where he'd lived. I was stunned he'd brought her without asking, knowing I'd be home. Not wanting to be rude to Sophia, I greeted her politely, but she gave me a cold, disdainful look and ignored me. I brushed it off and went to freshen up. While cooking dinner, Sophia came to the kitchen, staring at me silently. Feeling uneasy, I asked if she needed something, but she gave me the same icy glare and left. Later, as I headed downstairs, I overheard them talking. Sophia told Ethan he'd upgraded from someone like me. My heart sank as Ethan laughed and agreed. She asked why he'd ever dated me, and his response shattered me. He admitted he'd used me because I was naive enough to pay for dates and cover most of the rent, saving him money. I'd suspected he took advantage of me, but hearing he'd manipulated me from the start was devastating. They continued mocking me, tearing apart our relationship. I wanted to cry but refused to let them see me break. I slipped back upstairs, sobbing quietly into my pillow. The next morning they were gone, and Ethan had moved out completely. Walking through the empty house, I felt liberated. I cleaned every corner to erase his presence, dancing with joy at my newfound freedom. Over the next few weeks, I relished living alone, moving past their cruel words. Then, a coworker mentioned Ethan was marrying Sophia. Shocked at how fast it happened, I saw their engagement photos and felt a twinge of sadness for how he'd used me, but I was glad he'd found someone. That night, I found a wedding invitation from them in my mailbox. Inside, Ethan had scrawled a note. "I want you to see the lavish life I'll have with Sophia." It hit me that he'd invited me to gloat about his wealthy fiancée. Anger surged, and I decided to get even. I RSVP'd with a +1, hatching a plan to make him regret it. I scoured Sophia's social media and discovered she'd recently split with her ex, Liam, after a long high school romance. I reached out to Liam, explaining I was Ethan's ex and wanted to invite him as my +1 to their wedding. Intrigued, he agreed to chat. Over weeks, Liam shared that Sophia had cheated on him multiple times, including with Ethan, who she'd fallen for during their rough patch. They'd had a messy breakup, and though he'd blocked her, he still had feelings for her. I opened up about Ethan's manipulation and how he and Sophia mocked me. Liam was appalled and agreed to join me at the wedding. I couldn't wait to see their reactions. On the wedding day, Ethan's face dropped when he saw me with Liam, clearly recognizing him as Sophia's ex. He whispered angrily, asking why I brought him, but I just smiled and took my seat. When Sophia walked down the aisle, radiant in her gown, the ceremony proceeded smoothly. At the reception, she appeared in a new dress and froze upon seeing Liam with me. Furious, she demanded to know why he was there. I calmly said I'd invited him to support her marriage. She asked if we were dating, but Liam stayed quiet and her anger grew. He asked to speak privately, and she agreed, glaring at me as they left. Ethan watched nervously but couldn't intervene without causing a scene. The reception continued, but an hour later Sophia was still missing. Guests began whispering, and her father sent a bridesmaid to check on her. The bridesmaid returned with a note, announcing that Sophia had run off with Liam. The note revealed she still loved him and realized marrying Ethan was a mistake. The guests were stunned, and Ethan stood humiliated. I was shocked, too. I'd only brought Liam to rile Ethan up, not to break up the wedding. Sophia's parents apologized and asked everyone to leave. Watching Ethan's plan to flaunt his new life crumble felt oddly satisfying, though I felt a pang of guilt. Since sharing my story, opinions have been mixed. Some think I was justified, while others believe I went too far. To clarify, I never intended to ruin their wedding or discussed such an outcome with Liam. I don't know what he and Sophia talked about to prompt her decision. I only wanted to needle Ethan for his cruel invitation. I've texted Liam for clarity and will update when he responds. Update 2. Liam texted me, grateful I brought him to the wedding. He and Sophia went on the honeymoon meant for Ethan. They spoke to her parents, who were initially worried but now supportive. Liam promised to meet me soon to explain everything in person. Meanwhile, Ethan has been bombarding me with calls and nasty texts blaming me for ruining his marriage. I've ignored him, knowing I didn't cause Sophia's choice. Today, Ethan showed up at my door, refusing to leave until we talked. I cracked the door open, telling him to say what he wanted from outside. He screamed that I'd destroyed his life, revealing he'd quit his job, expecting Sophia's wealth to support him. I told him I'd overheard his conversation with Sophia, exposing how he used me for years. I said I'd done everything out of love, but he never respected me, even cheating with Sophia. I pointed out that his invitation to gloat pushed me to bring Liam. Sophia made her own choice to leave, and he should direct his anger at her. Ethan insisted I was naive for not seeing his manipulation and shouldn't punish him for the past. He admitted he'd worked hard to win Sophia for her money, and I'd ruined it. Disgusted, I threatened to call the police. He backed off, and I slammed the door, vowing it was the last time I'd see him. I've since blocked him, told my family, and planned to change my locks and install a camera for safety. Update 3. A month has passed, and I've been swamped with work, hence the delay in updating. Many of you asked about my meeting with Liam. We finally met for lunch last week. To my surprise, Sophia was there, but she greeted me warmly. Liam explained she wanted to apologize. Sophia expressed regret for her past behavior, admitting she'd been jealous of my independence. She shared that Ethan had charmed her at work, complaining about our relationship and flattering her. During a rough patch with Liam, she cheated with Ethan, who convinced her to leave Liam, claiming they'd have a perfect life together. Seeing Liam at the wedding rekindled her feelings, and their private talk confirmed their mutual love, leading her to run off with him. They've been together since, and her parents, though initially upset, now support them. She plans to annul her marriage to Ethan soon. I shared my journey to independence, and Sophia listened thoughtfully. We had a pleasant lunch and parted ways. I've had little contact with them since and want to stay out of their drama. I'm focusing on my career and hope Ethan learns not to pursue partners for their wealth.